morning, Glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. I'm Hugh Hewitt. Great to have you with me this morning. I'm beginning the program with the incoming chair of the Senate Appropriations Committee, Senator Susan Collins of the great state of Maine, my halftime home. Senator Collins, welcome back. It's good to talk to you, and thank you for getting up early. Congratulations on becoming the chairwoman of Appropriations on January 3rd. Kind of a surprise. A lot of people speculated that Leader McConnell would want that, but it's going to be you with the big job. How do you feel about that?
Well, I'm very excited about it, Hugh, and thank you for inviting me to join you this morning. It has been some 92 years since a Mainer has been at the helm of the Senate Appropriations Committee, so there's a bit of home state pride there as well. But most of all, I want to get us back on track, and that means focusing on the basics of getting the appropriations bills written and signed into law before the new fiscal year begins. We've got to finish up the fiscal year that we're in right now, FY 2025, before we can move on to the next fiscal year. And I think it's really important that we give President Trump a clean slate so that he can focus on fiscal year 2026, give us his budget, and I'm committed to working with him.
Now, Senator, I read a floor speech by you talking about regular order and 12 bills getting 12 votes in the Senate. Is that how it's going to work out this year? You're still in the minority. You don't take over until January 3rd. Do you expect the CR to take us a good way into calendar year 2025 and then fix the rest of it, or for the entire year?
My preference would be that we finish up the 2025 bills in December because they were supposed to be done by October 1st. Our problem has been that we've been unable to get Chuck Schumer, the Senate Democratic leader, to bring the bills to the floor, including 6 bills that passed of the 12 that passed out of our Appropriations Committee unanimously. And it costs the taxpayers money when we operate on continuing resolutions. Those are the short-term spending bills to fill in the gap because we continue to fund programs that should be either terminated or reduced. We block the start of essential new programs. The Department of Defense can't sign contracts during that period. So my preference is not to go into March, but finish the bills this year so the new administration can concentrate on preparing a budget that is due under law the first Monday in February for the next fiscal year.
Now, Senator, I'm wondering if they can run concurrently. I have a new column at Fox News this morning on the need for the budget resolution to pass the House and the Senate in order for the reconciliation process to be unlocked. Is it wishful thinking to think that the budget resolution for 2026 can be done by the end of February so the trailing bills can follow?
Well, the first thing we have to have is the president's budget, and the Budget Committee needs to produce the reconciliation bill that you mentioned. And I think we can double track a lot of this work. The most important thing, as you have pointed out, that the reconciliation bill will be used for is to extend a lot of President Trump's 2017 tax package, which I voted for, as did, I believe, every Republican. And those tax bills, those provisions will otherwise expire this year, and that would be disastrous. It would lead to massive tax hikes. I was talking to a small business owner just yesterday who outlined what it would mean for his business and what a boost the Trump 2017 tax cuts have been for his small business right here in Bangor, Maine.
I am curious, Senator, do you expect the SALT deduction to rise in the revision of an extension of the Trump tax cuts? There are two things we know. The tax on tips is going to go away, but the president-elect has talked about the salt limit going up as well. I think that's very healthy. It's especially important in Maine, New York, California, places with high property taxes. Do you expect that to be part of the package for reconciliation?
I hope it will be, but it's very controversial, as you know. I don't think it's fair to have a tax on a tax, and that's essentially what it is when you don't allow taxpayers to deduct the full amount of their state and local taxes, including property taxes. As you know, many people in Maine have a what we call a camp, a cabin on a lake. Why shouldn't they be able to deduct the full amount of their real estate taxes on their home and on their camp, for example, as well as the state income tax? I would also point out that there's a marriage penalty involved here, and generally we're against having marriage penalties because if you are a single person, you can deduct up to $10,000 under the current SALT limit. If you're married, it's still only 10,000. Couldn't we at least eliminate the marriage penalty so that two people who are married could deduct 20,000? That's
Makes
the bill
sense to
that
me.
I've introduced.
So, Senator, what is your role as chair of appropriations in budget reconciliation? I know there's a budget committee, but they've got to talk to you about this. Are you in the room like you were on the PPP when you were negotiating the specifics of the budget reconciliation? Because that is the mother lode.
It, it is so important, and we haven't had a budget resolution in years under the Democratic control. So I will certainly be involved. It falls under the jurisdiction of the Budget Committee rather than Appropriations, but it obviously shapes and guides the work that we do. Most important of all, it gives us a top line figure for the budget. And that is really useful for that to go through the House and the Senate. The budget resolution does not go to the president for his signature. So this is something that we need to do so that we have a top line for the appropriations process. And as you know, one of my top priorities is strengthening our national defense. So once I get a top line, I can negotiate with the Democrats on how much each of the subcommittees on appropriations will get. And national defense is a huge priority for me. It is very alarming that under the Biden administration budget request for defense, we would have the smallest Air Force in history, and our naval fleet of 296 ships will be shrunk by 5 ships over the next 5 years, while China's Navy continues to grow to more than 435 ships. So a strong national defense is really important to me.
I spoke to Admiral Mark Montgomery. Rear Admiral Montgomery's retired yesterday. He said we're down to 3.1% GDP. We've got to get back to 3.5% minimum. Do you share his objective over 4 years, Senator?
I absolutely do, and that's why I negotiated this year an increase beyond the president's budget of about $23 billion. That money is desperately needed. I talked to the combatant commanders all over the globe, and to a person, they tell me this is the most dangerous time for global threats that we've experienced since World War II, and we can't ignore that imperative.
Senator, I want to talk to you about 3 things before you run. I might keep you during the break for a second and play it after the break. One is the return of earmarks and riders. The second is it's kind of a hometown issue, which is the destroyers that are in the Kennebec. There aren't enough of them. And then I want to talk to you about the Rue Institute. So first, are appropriations riders and earmarks back?
They are back. And let me explain to your listeners that to me, this is an issue of whether the executive branch is making spending decisions or whether we in Congress, who have a constitutional authority or have the power of the purse, are making spending decisions. And to me, we in Congress know our state's needs far better than someone who's never been to the state of Maine, who is working in a federal agency or department in Washington. At least they should be working. Too many of them are still at home, and that's a whole nother issue. So,
Well, I am glad they're back. Pause for a second, Senator. I'm going to come back and tape this 4 more minutes with you and play it on the other side. Don't go anywhere, America. Senator Susan Collins, incoming Chair of Appropriations, is my guest. We're going to hear about Arleigh Burke destroyers next. I am back with Senator Collins. I agree with you, Senator, on appropriations on both riders and on earmarks. One of those earmarks I'd like to see is for more Arleigh Burke destroyers, because I've read everything that I can. I'm a civilian. I'm not a military person, but they work. They're important. They do a lot of heavy lifting. They protect our carriers. We only have 3 of them in the Kennebec. What about more of those per year, Senator?
we definitely need to produce more destroyers. One has only to look at the role the destroyers have played in the Red Sea and the Mediterranean to realize how important they are in shooting down the Houthi missiles that have been aimed at not only at Israel, but at commercial ships to try to bring commercial shipping to a halt. And the Arleigh Burke destroyers that are built at Bath Iron Works and at Ingalls Shipyard in Mississippi, I'm very proud of the BIW destroyers, all of our destroyers I'm very proud of, because they played a critical role in protecting Israel, in keeping the shipping lanes open, and protecting our own troops, some of whom have lost their lives. But our destroyers have an incredible record. And keep in mind, the Houthis out of Yemen are a terrorist group. They're a proxy of Iran. It's all coordinated by Iran. And it is those destroyers are absolutely critical. One of them that was built at Bath Iron Works has a perfect record of shooting down 22 missiles that were aimed at Israel and at commercial ships in the Red Sea.
And I want people to, we used to build 17 destroyers a year on the Kennebec River in Maine. It's down to 1.5 a year. So I think it's vitally important. Last question, Senator. I'm a big enthusiast of the Rue Institute, which is coming to Portland, Maine. I don't live in Portland, but I think AI is the future, and we can't just have it all in Silicon Valley. I wouldn't even mind an earmark for it. What do you think about the Rue Institute?
Well, the Rue Institute is concentrating on high-tech jobs, and I'll tell you that any group, and it's out of Northeastern University, any group that is willing to work collaboratively with other educational institutions of Maine, including the University of Maine, our community colleges, to produce more skilled workers for our state so that young people don't feel that they have to leave Maine to get a good job. These are the jobs of the future, and I certainly welcome the efforts of the Rue Institute and appreciate David Rue, after whom it's named, for his generous contributions.
Senator Collins, good to talk to you. Your website is susancollins.com. I look forward to talking to you throughout the next 2 years, and good luck in the incoming chair, because, boy, that's a lot of work. I mean, it's a lot of work, America, but Susan Collins can get it done. I appreciate it, Senator. Have a good morning.
Thanks so much.